Hello, this is the Life Friendly Business Podcast, and I'm Erin Thomas Wong. Today, I'm going to be speaking to Hannah Martin, founder of the hugely successful Talented Ladies Club, which is an online magazine and training academy for women, with over 100,000 hits to the website a month and over 50,000 followers on social media. Hannah is also an award-winning copywriter, a qualified psychotherapist, hypnotist and NLP practitioner. She is also a member of 2 All Parliamentary Groups in the House of Commons. Hannah shares her story of building Talented Ladies from the ground up to where it is today, a well-oiled machine. She also talks about why she just felt she had to speak up against MLMs, and she shares her tips for building a successful life-friendly business. Hello, Hannah. Thank you so much for joining me on the Life Friendly Business Podcast.
Hello, Erin. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. So you have been in business for nearly 9 years now, and I'd love to hear what was the main driver for you leaving a corporate role and starting your own business?
Well, I actually left a bit before this, actually. So I left working for someone else when I was a single mum, when my son was a little boy, and I went freelance. But initially, I still worked for big companies in London, on a freelance basis. But when I had my daughter in 2009, I decided to freelance from home because I live in Worthing by the sea, and I worked in London, and the commute just really didn't work with a young family. So I freelanced then. But it was, in terms of Talented Ladies Club, it was actually going freelance myself and meeting other mothers who really struggled to bridge that divide between a permanent full-time job and working for themselves. It inspired me to start TLC.
Wonderful. And I totally resonate with that, actually, because it was only when I became a mum and started looking at starting my own business that I discovered there was this whole world of people who were going through the same thing and like wanting to do something that they really loved, but also be around for their kids. And it's like, it feels like at first it feels like this secret world that you're just not aware of until you actually get to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it does seem, and I remember, I mean, even though I'd freelanced, and I wanted to do TLC for about 18 months, 2 years before I actually started it. But the thing that really stopped me is I thought, I'm not an entrepreneur. Like, to me, an entrepreneur was someone like Richard Branson, who started a business at 16 and made a fortune quite quickly and was clearly just like born to be in business. So I thought, oh, I'm not a business person. So how can I start a business? I need to go into partnership with someone who's a business person. And what I've actually learned through doing it myself is that no one is a business person until they do it. And actually running a business is relatively simple. There's some basics you need to get right, but actually anyone can do it. And you're not an entrepreneur until you start a business.
I love that. And it's really interesting, actually, because that word entrepreneur, like, when I started working for myself, I was reading things like Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week and stuff. And the word entrepreneur just seems like, yeah, that describes kind of what I'm doing. But then I realized over the years how many women just did not resonate with that at all, because of a lot of imposter syndrome as well, and feeling like, well, who am I to call myself an entrepreneur? And, you know, it's really interesting the kind of the labels that people are happy with or not. And entrepreneur is definitely one of those mixed ones, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, it does. And for me, if someone is a freelancer, as I was, they're an entrepreneur. They happen to run a micro business of one person, but you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So what was the idea behind Talented Ladies Club when you started, and how has that evolved to now?
So when I had the idea for TLC, I mean, it started because I met so many mums in my local town. Once I stopped working in London and realised I didn't have any friends in my town, so I just basically slept there. So I started getting to know local women, and I was really shocked at how many talented, ambitious, amazing women were struggling to find work. And the real kind of crux point to me was there were 2 mums in my son's class at school. One had been an architect in London, one had been a lawyer in London. They were both looking for part-time admin work because they thought that was all they could get. And that really pushed me. I thought, I knew that there was more. And I always felt very passionately about doing something I loved and earning good money for it. It was a real driver for me, and I was never prepared to settle. And I felt really upset for these women that they were having to settle. And I looked around, there was nothing online at that time that talked about this. There was this sort of, if there was anything online about mothers working or starting a business, it tended to be like, well, you might have had a career, but maybe you can get some part-time work on the till at Tesco. It was that sort of level of stuff. And so I, in absence of there being anything, I created it. I didn't have any expertise or not, I didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how it's going to make money, but it was really like a passion to I wanted to inspire women, and I wanted to give them advice, and I wanted to help women like my friends to do something they really deserve to do. And I'm really delighted since then that, I mean, the market has exploded. I mean, today there is so much for these women, which is brilliant, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's why I started it. And so today, yeah, there is, like I say, there is a lot on around. So, and I think that's brilliant now, because women do expect when they have children today, as they should do, that they can do things that they love, that they're good at, and they're rewarded appropriately financially for it.
Yeah, it's amazing what you've achieved with Talented Ladies Club. And I think that, you know, I know that a lot of the women that I mentor, when they've left their career to have a baby, you know, it has changed everything for them in terms of how they feel about themselves as well, and their confidence, and then making the decision, actually, that career doesn't fit with what I want to do now. I think it's really important that there is support there for people that get it, that, you know, that understand the knocking confidence and the self-doubt that creeps in when you're trying to do something new. It's like a whole new chapter of your life, isn't it? Like, not only have you become a parent for the first time, but then you're thinking about, how am I going to manage that and a career? And I think it's wonderful that there's so much out there now.
I think it is, and there's more recognition, I think, because what does happen quite often is you have to take some kind of break or maternity leave, even if it's a very short period. And in that time, your identity changes. You've gone from being just Erin or just being Hannah, and often we define ourselves as what we do. You know, I'm Hannah, I'm a copywriter. That would have been my identity. But then suddenly you're someone's mum. And then you hear words like just a mum as well. And then people take time out of work for maternity leave. And so all the sort of the foundations of who you are as a person have shifted. And it can be hard to go back. If you've taken time out, the world's moved on, your company's moved on, and you're trying to go back into that, you know, and you think you've got baby brain and all those worries that you're not going to be good at the job. But then also, sometimes you lose your passion. And I think actually it's a great time to evaluate what you want to do, because you may not want to go back into a career that actually maybe you didn't really love before or didn't really suit. So I think that there's a lot going on there, which is why it's so good today, because there's so much more information about this. So women think they feel normal and they have tools, whereas before women thought, oh, it's just me and I'm not normal, or, you know, I'm not worthy now. And actually they can understand that there is a psychological process you go through, and it's fine, and you can get advice on that. So I think it's much needed.
Yeah, I really resonate with the whole identity thing. And I think that's so true, that, you know, I worked in TV and that was very much who I was. And I used to love talking to people about it. And, you know, I was a production manager, so basically kind of project management stuff. And then when I became a mum, I was so anxious. I was exhausted. My baby was ill. Like I think he went to hospital like 6 times. Luckily, nothing like really, really serious. But in the first year, I was a wreck in some ways. And I was like, who is this person? This isn't like the confident TV production manager who knew what she was doing. Like, not that I always felt like that. You know, we all have confidence issues, but suddenly I was like, who the hell is this person? And it was all about kind of rediscovering who I was now. And yeah, so and I think that, you know, so many women have those experiences, and they need to surround themselves with people that get it. And, you know, one thing that you were saying about, you know, it's great now that women know that they can have what they want to have, and it's just finding a way that works for them. I really think as well, this whole life-friendly business approach, that we need to be confident in being clear about what our boundaries are with our work, and not being afraid to say, I can't do that call because I picked my child up at 3 o'clock, and not feel like that makes you any less of a business owner.
Absolutely. And it's really funny about that, because if a man were to say that, he'd be held up as kind of, what a great guy, look at him, he's, you know, he's great in the office and he's great with his kids. And then a woman says it and it's like, oh, she's not really, her mind's not really in work, you know, she's a mum first. I do think that what's happened over the last, as a plus side of what's happening with the pandemic and remote working being the norm, I think that you know, men being at home have seen kind of how it is to kind of be juggling things with children. But I also think that we're never going to go back to the way things were in the workplace. I think there is going to be a shift. And I think there's going to be much more embracing of different ways of working now, which I think can only help mothers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, actually. So my husband runs his own business as well, and we both work at home. And, you know, like, hats off to him. He does so, I mean, it is very much 50-50, although I would say that I hold the emotional weight of being the parent. But one thing that I still don't get at all is that he'll just say, oh, I've got a call at 3 o'clock today. Can you get Milo? And I'm like, well, yes, I can, because actually it's very rare that any of my calls go over like 2:30, because that's where, but like, he's booking calls in at a time when we know that we need to go and collect our son, and I just wouldn't do that. There's like a hard barrier in my head. Yes. And it's just really interesting, the fact that and this is the whole invisible load thing, isn't it? Like, my brain is that's all there. It's like really like neon lights. I need to finish so that I can pick my son up from school. Yet there maybe a little bit, I know it's not just him, I've heard, you know, my friends have the same issue. It's like, it just doesn't occur to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And my husband is brilliant as well. Sounds very similar to your husband, and it's exactly the same. And I think the difference is that if I said to him, if someone said to me, oh, there's a meeting in San Francisco, can you come and attend it? And I would go, I would love to go. I just got to check my diary and make sure I can do it. Whereas my husband would go, yeah, absolutely, I can do it. And then, you know, and I know that he would support me, and he always does make things happen so that I can do the things I do. But it's that different thing that they would accept without question, and we would kind of conditionally go, either I can't do it or I need to check. And I think you're saying it's the emotional load of being a mother, and that responsibility that is just slightly different. And like I say, you know, in terms of my husband, it sounds like yours. My husband's a great guy, fully supportive, does 50% of housework, probably even more. And you know, and will always pick up the slack. But it's that, just that it's thought first for us, and it's not
yes.
for them.
That's thought first. Absolutely. So how do you run things in terms of your business? Like, what are your non-negotiables?
So this is a hard lesson learned over nearly 9 years. So in the early days of TLC, the business ran me, and I'd work more than 5 days a week on it. And it didn't, in the early days, it wasn't bringing in very much, if any, money as well. So it was very much as a labor of love, but I didn't have systems in place. And I didn't have any boundaries. So I would sort of, you know, I'd be cooking dinner for the kids whilst trying to check my email, and, you know, and things like that. Whereas now it makes lots more money, but I've also set it up so that I've got lots of automation in it, that, you know, so much of the business is run so that it runs without me. I don't need to be physically there, so that I work. I mean, I've got an office now. I come in about 5 minutes walk from my home. I come in here 4 days a week. I come in here from 8:30 to about 3. But also, like, my son had his driving test yesterday, so I took the day off and spent the day with him, helping him prepare for that. And I can do that and then just pick up the emails the next morning. But I'm really clear about my boundaries now as well, you know, like, and it helps to have an office. I close my laptop at 3, and, you know, obviously I can see emails pinging on my phone, and unless something really urgent came in, I don't action them, like, they're just there. And then, you know, I might check my inbox for half an hour in the evening, but that's it. So I now run the business, and there are things like, you know, I don't schedule meetings after 3 o'clock, you know, that 3 o'clock is when I finish. And I don't work Fridays unless exceptional reason. So for me, it's the mental liberation. You know, we talked about the emotional load about being a parent, and it's that kind of thing where I say when I switch off, I say when I'm working, and I don't allow people to go over that. So I don't feel any resentment, because in the early days I felt quite a lot of resentment because I was giving so much and I didn't have any boundaries in place. Whereas now I'm much firmer. And one thing I've noticed time and time again with working with other people as well, when a business has no boundaries, people don't respect that business, and actually you get less business because people are thinking, well, it's a bit like if you were dating someone and they didn't have any boundaries, they let you walk all over them, and you wouldn't really respect that person. You wouldn't want to be with someone who didn't respect themselves. And I find the same with businesses. As businesses put down kind of, these are the way I work, and if you don't want to work with me, that's fine, you can find someone else, no hard feelings, but this is how I work, they get more successful because other people respect the fact that they have those boundaries in place.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's something that often takes time to develop for yourself, but that's what I'm trying to help people to do, is get those boundaries in at the beginning, like you say, because I think one trap that a lot of us fall into is because we love what we do, we're like, oh, but I don't mind. Oh, I don't mind having a half an hour call at 6 p.m, or 7 o'clock when I need to put the kids to bed, because I love what I do and I want to help people. And it's that, but actually that is not sustainable. And like you say, it's not setting the right expectations. If you are responding to people instantly at 9 o'clock at night, they're going to get used to that and expect that. And then at some point, whether it takes you 2 months or 2 years, you will resent that, like you say, because you haven't got those things in place. And I think as well, that thing about, like when you're saying about, checking email, but I'm not going to respond to that, blah, blah, blah. It's also about having that mindset, like, I've done enough for today. That is enough. Because there's always more that we can be doing. That's one of the exciting things about running a business, isn't it? There's always opportunity out there, and there's always more stuff you can be doing, but we have to tell ourselves, like, that is enough.
And conserve your energy and enthusiasm as well, because if you expend it another time, you're not going to have it the next day. So absolutely, it's really important to do that.
So one thing you mentioned there about systems and processes, and one thing I've really admired over the years with Talented Ladies Club is just how much content you guys create, and it's all really valuable, meaty content. And I know back at the beginning you were doing a lot of that yourself. Like, how on earth do you manage creating all that stuff?
Well, today, because we've been going for so long now as a site, most of the content on the site I don't write anymore. I pass an eye over, I'll do a light edit if required, but it's very rare I can schedule time in. So I tend to do much more investigative stuff. Like I'll do maybe like an article if I'm doing if we're running a course, for example, I'll create content around the topic of that course for people. But otherwise, most of the content on the site's not written by me anymore, which, and it's that kind of thing, like when you first start a business, someone once said, and it's a great analogy, like you're turning a crank, and that crank's rusty and you're really having to kind of pull it, and it's so much effort. But as time goes on, that crank gets easier and easier. And at some point, it's actually, you can take your hands off it and it's going. And certainly regarding the content side of TLC, it's very much like that. So the content side of TLC now just runs itself, which is really easy.
So what other processes do you have in place that make it so that you can step back a little bit now it's been running for a while?
So what I would say, it sounds like a process, but I think is really, really important is to have some kind of consultant or coach or someone outside the business to work with. I work with someone all the time, and it's having that external kind of guidance on things, because that's where you can, where to kind of put your laser vision and focus on things. So first of all, I have that, and that helps me to prioritize. So rather than before, I would just try and sell everything all the time. Now I kind of go, right, I'm going to have a focus this month, and actually plan out my year and know what my campaigns are going to be. And then with the campaigns now, over time, I know what content I need in the campaign. I plan it out. I work with a lovely lady called Jo, and she does my marketing social media with me. So we'll sit and plan out a campaign. We've created all our own spreadsheets. So we've got beautiful campaign planners. And then once the campaign's up and running, we've got spreadsheets. So we just put data in and it automatically works out all our kind of conversion rates and things like that. So having systems in place is really important. Have systems for everything. And then it's things like automating all the different parts of your business. So automating leads coming in, having really good email software. So at the start of a campaign, I'll write all my emails to the campaign. I will set up all my tags and I'll use Zapier to connect it to Thinkific, where we sell our courses, so that wherever, once I set it up in the beginning, it's a bit like Mousetrap, like you kind of put all the pieces together. and then you can kind of go off, and all of your marketing will just trigger it all, and will send to the right people. So for example, last October, I created all my courses, I did all my marketing for the rest of the year. So if I'd wanted to, I could have just, kind of gone, oh, what am I going to do this week? Because everything was already prepared and was all ready to go and all timed. So for me, it's things like that. It's more systemizing it and then using automation to back up that system.
And you mentioned right at the beginning of that you have a consultant or, a mentor that guides you through this stuff. And I remember actually one of the first things that I heard you talk about was about how much money you were spending on like business support and personal development stuff. And it really inspired me actually, because it was, I think I remember you saying that, sometimes you were paying more out on that stuff than you were actually earning. But I mean, your example just shows like how much that has helped you grow this business to where it is today, investing
Absolutely.
in that support.
And I think that's the key word, investment. And you have to, I took my time, sorry, my dentist reminder for later. I took my time to find the right person. And she was £800 a month. And at that time, this is like kind of very early years of TLC, and TLC wasn't turning over £800 a month consistently at that point. But I knew that I would never get beyond that if I didn't get that help. And within 3 months working with her, we were easily turning over that. And then by the end of, by a year later, we were turning over way, way more. And it's that kind of, and I think with anyone you work with, I've worked with quite a few over the years, or a few, not quite a few. And I've often chosen someone, like if I think, well, there's something I need to learn in my business, and I'll find someone who's got that expertise and I'll work with them. And what I'm now is I work with a consultant now. So I have someone, I kind of know how business runs, and I have someone I check in with every month, and she looks at things and she'll always push me on something, give me accountability. But I think it is really important. What I would just say is, do choose your person wisely. And I know you'll agree with this. Don't fall for sales hype. Don't fall for someone who's offering you the stars. It's got to be, a lot of business is the kind of basics, of really good basics. So find someone that's got really, really good basics, not someone that's going to kind of tell you you're going to be a millionaire in a year, because actually no one can promise that, and it's unrealistic. But someone who's going to teach you the things about running a business that you don't maybe know yet.
Yeah, and also someone that has walked the path before you, and that can share their expertise and their knowledge with you and act as a sounding board as well. And I really resent the whole online marketing world that you see of people offering a course, like a 6-step course, and you can be earning 10k a month and all these kind of things, and it doesn't feel authentic. And I think you need to, like you say, I think someone said to me, which I thought was a great tip, about if you're going to find someone to work with, like consume their free content first, listen to their podcast, read their blog posts, do like a free webinar, and really get a sense of who that person is, because you need to be able to click with them, don't you, and trust them. Yeah.
And you should be, if you watch a webinar with someone, you should be furiously writing notes and thinking, that's really brilliant. And what I think is, like, if you think about it, like the diet world, we all know that if we want to be healthy and maintain a good weight, we need to eat healthy food in moderation and exercise. But there's always these diet pills and these shakes. You could do shakes for a week and lose 3 stone, but we know that it's not actually long lasting, and we know it's not real. And it's a bit like that, it's find someone who's going to teach you like the boring but actually the way that works, rather than the sexy, oh, it seems too good to be true, because it usually is.
Brilliant. One thing I wanted to touch on is the fact that you are quite a thought leader, I believe, in the industry. And over the years, you've not been shy in sharing your opinion about things. And the one thing that I wanted to touch on was the multi-level marketing stuff, MLM. So do you just want to explain what your feeling was about MLMs and why you felt like you wanted to get out there and kind of share some education about it?
Definitely. Well, first of all, I didn't know what they were until a few years ago. And actually, we had someone on the site because I didn't know what they were. And I thought, like most people, oh, it's a way that women, like Tupperware, it's quite innocent, Avon, women earn money working from home. And then I watched the documentary Betting on Zero about Herbalife, and I was horrified when I watched it. And what particularly horrified me was the fact that it preyed on the most vulnerable people. And in this case, it was undocumented people in America who were already struggling. And they were investing thousands of pounds in something that took the money and then didn't care. And I started looking into it after that, thinking, is it just Herbalife? And then found this research published on the Federal Trade Commission website that said that 99.6% of people who get involved in any MLM will lose money on average once their business expenses taken into account. And the more I looked into it, the more I was horrified. And there is a part of me that there is a sort of social conscience thing that I wish I didn't have sometimes. It'd be easier not to have. But if I see something, I cannot not speak out. And I felt really passionately about talking about this. So I published the first article about it. I was so nervous, because one of the things I wanted about TLC was I didn't want it to be particularly opinionated, because I think you alienate people. So I didn't want to have a political stance or a religious stance. I wanted it to be accessible for anyone who needed it. So I had deliberately not really kind of come out and had a strong stance on anything in particular. But I felt this was, to me, was quite black and white. I mean, there was no good side to MLM as far as I could see. So yeah, that's, I think 6 years ago now.
Wow. That just shows how time is flying by.
I know, exactly. But the more I have learned about MLM since, the more I loathe it as a business model. I do personally think MLMs are pyramid schemes. I don't think there's anything good in any of them, and I would not recommend someone join them.
And so what was the reaction like in your network? You had a really, really big audience, and I assume that there was a good percentage who were running MLMs at the time. What was the feedback like on that? Yeah, funnily enough,
it was overwhelmingly positive, which was a big relief to me when I published it. It was overwhelmingly positive, and actually probably did us more good than harm, because people were really pleased to see us taking a stance like that. I had a few, I mean, initially when I would share them on Facebook, I would get a few angry people on there. I have now, come to kind of the cliched responses that they, that all MLM reps tend to have when this is criticized. And I do sometimes get very funny messages via our sites from people around the world when they consume our content and are horrified. And one person wishes I would die listening to their leader's voice, which just
oh my goodness.
I found quite funny. Yeah, so I rarely, I sometimes get hate mail about it, but like I say, I mean, I just find it quite funny rather than anything else.
Well, and it's great that you're saying that, but that was one of my questions, is that, I know, I've got women in my community who are standing up and saying what they think is right, and they're getting backlash for it. And, I've heard about this whole thing called tall poppy syndrome, where the poppies that grow taller, they, people just cut them down. And that, that puts people off from being their true selves and expressing their true opinion, because they're nervous about how people are going to react. So what would be your advice to those people?
Well, I have courage, your convictions, and anyone that criticizes you, I mean, anyone decent, people can have a different point of view, and you respect it. You will listen to someone's point of view and think, I don't agree with what you believe, but you're entitled to your opinion, I'm entitled to mine. So anyone that is just going to cut you down because you have a different opinion to them isn't really worth worrying about anyway, because if that's how they are. So I would say, personally, like I said, there is a social conscience part of me and I'm quite stubborn. So I do have to stand up for what I believe, and I'm happy to do so. If we're talking about MLM in particular, I think anyone in an MLM is a victim, personally. And when they are in MLMs, and I understand the mindset, and I spoke with lots of people who've left. So I feel for people who are in an MLM, and I don't mean to sound patronizing here, but I have compassion for them. And I understand why they say the things they do, because they've invested so much hope this is going to work for them. And MLMs do particularly prey on the vulnerable people, financially vulnerable people. I mean, for example, a mum who's out of work with children is a perfect candidate for them. So I do feel compassion for people who are in it. I don't necessarily feel compassion for people right at the top. The reps that do make the money, because they know what they're doing and they know people they're recruiting aren't going to make money. But if someone's in it and they have this reaction, I understand why they have that reaction. So I'm happy for them to feel like that. I don't feel like denigrates my point of view or makes me want less to speak out about it.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the only thing I can compare to briefly in my own experience was the whole Mumpreneur debate, because my business name was Making Mumpreneurs, then the Mumpreneur Collective. And I was approached by BBC Radio 4 Women's Hour to go on and basically, be there for the term mumpreneur when someone else was fighting against it. And at that time, there'd been an article in the BBC saying that the word was patronizing. And I was obviously nervous, but I knew my reasons for why I thought that the term had value, because it helped people find their community and things like that. And actually, it brought people to me because people resonated with what I said. And so they came to find me because they realized that that they recognize themselves in what I was talking about. So although it was quite nerve-wracking thinking, I don't want to, put my hand up and say, I disagree with this. You have to, don't you? You have to. And if you believe in it, then you have to speak up.
And what I'd say is, like, in life and in business, you want to find your people. Any business is not going to appeal to everyone. Even if you have two businesses doing the same thing, they're going to have different audiences because of personality and nature, what they do. And actually, you don't want to attract the wrong people to your business, but not even just business, in life. We want to surround ourselves with people whose company we enjoy, who like us and we like. We don't want to surround ourselves with people who don't like us and we don't get on with. So I actually think there's a value to being authentically you and have the courage to be authentically you, because, as you say, whether it's personally or professionally, people will flock to you who what you say resonates with them. Not so who agrees with you, but maybe likes how you stand up for yourself or likes something about you. They will come to you. And the people who don't like you, just let them fall away. If someone has a poor opinion of you, and I think this is why I talked about this on a podcast once. I was never popular at school. I wasn't an in person at all. I was very shy, didn't have great personal social skills. So I never fitted into a crowd. And I think it's given me kind of courage as an adult because I don't feel like I have to belong to a group. But it does also mean I really value the friendships I have. So I'm surrounded by lovely family and lovely friends who I think like me and I like them, and that they're the people whose opinion matter to me. If someone I don't know doesn't like me because of things I've said, then that's okay, because not everyone has to like me. So I think, if you have got the sort of the courage of your beliefs and you're being authentic, and that there are people who do like you, it can give you a confidence that you can speak out. And it's still nerve-wracking, like, going on. It's really, and I remember listening to your Women's Hour, and it was a really brave thing to do. But people, the right people will always respect you for that. And I think it's rare that you would regret ever speaking your authentic truth. I think, you'd sleep better at night, even if it didn't immediately have the outcome you wanted.
100%. Yeah, definitely. So what's next for you and Talented Ladies Club?
So, well, I mean, nearly 9 years. I feel like it's taken me like 9 years to realize how the business really works. So I've kind of honed things down to a few things I really love doing. One of the things I realized, I'm a really good problem solver, and I'm really good at thinking on my feet, and I can kind of almost intuitively see what people going wrong. So I love working with businesses that are established but aren't making money yet. And it's a bit like having an old car that's not working, and you can do it up and then it kind of drives off into the sunset with shiny. So I've honed TLC down to the things I really love. The site kind of works for itself, which is great. And then I have a handful of courses that I really love working on. I love creating masterclasses. So yeah, it's kind of doing that and sort of honing further and further the process that I do. So the business really runs itself more and more.
And where can people find you?
So our website is talentedladiesclub.com. And yeah, you can find me there. We are on social media, although I have to say, like, I'm quite a shy person, and I find social media really energy draining. So increasingly I kind of shy away from social media, which I know isn't great, but yeah, like on social media channels like Talented Ladies Club. But yeah, our site is the main place you can find us.
Lovely. And one final question. So if you could go back in time to when you first started TLC, what advice would you give yourself?
I would have said, hire a coach from the word go. The person I hired, I think was it 3 years in, hire her from day one.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much. You've shared such interesting perspectives, and I know it's going to be really valuable for people to hear. You know, you've been through a lot of journey in the last 9 years, and yeah, it's fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Erin.